I think it's recording. This is a study of the minor prophets, and we're looking at the book of Hosea right now. And we're in the second lesson on Hosea. And if you have the outline of notes, we're just following right through those notes. And you can, of course, if you print them out, you can make notes in your margin. If not, I would suggest you can record, it'll be recorded so you can listen to it again. We'll be looking at Israel must be chastised in chapter 2, verses 2 through 7. And so we got into chapter 2 last week. We completed chapter 1, and I think the first verse of chapter 2. God would take away the blessing that Israel had lavished, that Israel had lavished upon Baal. God had lavished it upon Israel, the blessings, many blessings, and they had turned around and lavished those blessings that he'd given them. They'd given it to Baal and given their affections to Baal and their money and their efforts and their time. Who would care for Israel? He'd take care of Israel, but Israel's going to be punished. So Israel now is the northern 10 tribes. And God would restore blessings upon Israel. You see this in Hosea chapter 2, verse 21 through 23. This is our outline for what we've been covering in this lesson tonight. Israel has lesson 2. This is our second lesson. Here in verses 2 through 3, the people are likened to Hosea's children, and Israel is likened to Gomer. And Gomer is Hosea's wife. She's unfaithful. She goes off and becomes a harlot. And he has children, and we're not even sure that they're his. The implication by the name that God told him to give them kind of implies they might not be his children. And I think it's probably not the case. The first one probably was his, and the last two I don't think were his children. I think they were fathered by some other man or some other men, maybe two different men. The people are likened to Hosea's children, and Israel is likened to the unfaithful wife, Gomer. Contend with your mother. And so now, again, contend, for she is not my wife. So I put her away. She's not my wife. Neither am I her husband. And let her put away her whoredoms from her face and her adulteries between her breasts. So now she's guilty of adultery. She's married to Hosea, and yet she's consorting with other men as a harlot. And she goes off and becomes a prostitute, a harlot. And he says she's not my wife anymore. So I would assume that he has divorced her. See? I'm not her husband anymore. Lest I strip her naked and set her as in the day that she was born. Make her as a wilderness and set her like a dry land and slay her with thirst. So right here he says, I can do this. Now this is, I've read about the people of the first century time, and apparently, according to the Romans wrote about this, about the Germans, if a man's wife committed adultery, he'd strip her naked and take a whip and whip her all the way through the village and run her back toward her family and send her back naked and lay straps on her while she's going. And so this is similar to what Hosea is speaking of. God speaks through Hosea. Lest I strip her naked and set her as in the day that she was born. Now, we'll go back and look here. Is he talking about Hosea's wife? Yes, I think so. And yet, I think we're going to see that he applies the same arguments, same points See, Israel. The people are like illegitimate children. See, they're like, let's talk about Israel. See, like illegitimate children. Yea, upon her children will I have no mercy, for they are children of whoredom, for their mother has played the harlot. And he's talking about Israel now. She that conceives them hath borne it unshamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers that give me my bread and my water, my wool, my flax, my oil, and my drink. I'll go after them. So she's a harlot. She's selling her body as a prostitute. And so that's Israel doing this. Gomer's doing it too. So Hosea is exactly the same position that God was with Israel. And Hosea now is so grieved by his wife's action. God would place thorn hedges against Israel, provide chastisement to bring her to repentance. Thorns will prick you and they hurt. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up thy way with thorns. So you can't go anywhere because you got a hedge around you with thorns. You try to get through a thorn hedge, and boy, it hurts. Those thorns stick in you. I will build a wall against her that she shall not find her path. So I'm gonna provide a reason for her to turn away from this. And he says, I'll build a wall against her. Now, it might be the hedge is the thorns and the wall is the same as the hedge. I think the hedge and the wall are the same. It's probably Hebrew parallelism, where the hedge and up that way with thorns, build a wall against her, are the same thing. So that hedge is the wall against her. That shall not find her path, so that she shall not find her path. So she can't find a way to get back to her harlotry. So I want to try to hem her in or put a hedge around her, protect her from her sin. Since Israel said, I will go and return to my first husband, she must have in some manner married another God. Chapter 2, verse 7. Now notice here. And she shall follow after her lovers, but she shall not overtake them, because I put a hedge around her so she can't get to them. And she shall seek them, but shall not find them. Then shall she say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then was it better with me than now. Hosea probably was good looking, probably maybe even beautiful woman physically, not spiritually, of course. And so men wanted her to fornicate with her, but after time, her body probably began to get wrinkles, and she wasn't as beautiful anymore. It wasn't as desirous, and so men didn't want her anymore. So she says, she shall follow after her lovers, but shall not overtake them. She shall seek them, but shall not find them. Then she shall say, I will go and return to my first husband. I will go back to Hosea. But this is Israel trying to go back to God. Well, then was it better with me than now? Had it better than I have now? So she got down. It's like the prodigal son. He got down to the pig pen. He's feeding pigs, and that's the utter bottom of the barrel for a Jew to feed pigs. All right, so you have to understand that in the parable of the prodigal son. Okay. All right. Now it seems that the woman who served as temple prostitutes consider themselves to be married to Baal. That's best I can tell. I think that's what they consider themselves to be. And this would explain the words of Hosea 3:3 as they are linked in Deuteronomy 26:1-4. It would explain it. God would take away his blessings that Israel had lavished upon Baal. God had given them blessings, and they used those blessings to worship Baal instead of worship the true God. God had given them the blessing. God had blessed Israel, but they used these blessings for serving Baal. In chapter 2, verse 8. For she did not know that I gave her the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and multiplied unto her silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Because in their failure to even believe in the true God and have the right kind of faith in the true God, they didn't realize that the grain and the wine and oil and all that came from God. See? Now, if you go back, and I'll just digress just for a brief moment here, go back to the days of Elijah. Elijah, when they were worshiping Baal, he called for no rain to occur. Said it won't rain until I say so. And God will speak through me and he'll tell you when the rain will start. And so he had to hide because they were looking for him, because it didn't rain for 3.5 years. And so this is what happened. And that proved to them that the grain and the new wine and the oil that they had been so blessed with didn't come from Baal. It came from the true God. And it began to rain when God said it would rain. God is the source of all blessings. We need to understand that. And so, but that they didn't understand. They were lavishing it back on Baal. And Baal was nothing. He's just a piece of stone, or a piece of wood, or a piece of metal. Okay? God would take away his blessing because of their sins. Therefore, see, because of this, I go back and let's read it. She didn't know that I gave her this. They used it for Baal. Therefore, he says, well, I'll take back my grain at the time thereof, and my new wine in the season thereof, pluck away my wool and my flax, which should have covered her nakedness. So they should have covered her nakedness. Now, flax was used for the making of cloth, linen cloth. Linen cloth was the cloth that very wealthy people wore. I've been told, and I haven't verified it, but I read this in a commentary here too, that linen is objectionable to the odor from it, and there's something about it that drives lice and fleas away. And some of your parasites for these ticks, I think, just don't like linen. The smell of linen somehow drives them away. And so that may be why some people would use linen bed sheets. And they would use them because it would drive insects away. But that's what I was told, and I have not verified it, however. But if that's the case, the flax for making more linen would be what wealthy people would wear. And so it was a blessing that flax would drive away any parasites that might like fleas and ticks and lice. Therefore, when I take back my grain, I'll take it back. And I'm reminded of what happened in the days of Elijah. He did take it back. My grain in the time thereof, the time that you harvest the grain. Now in the United States, where I grew up, the wheat was harvested in May, usually. The barley would be harvested a little bit before the wheat. All right. The barley harvest comes before the wheat. Barley ripens before wheat does. A new wine, that would be from the vineyards. And the season there, when the grapes get ripe, which comes later, pluck away my wool and my flax, which should have covered her nakedness. Flax is, I'm told it's kind of hard to make linen, and so it's one of those things that you get, and it takes effort to make it, and so it makes the linen cloth more expensive. And the wool, of course, would make clothing out of it. You have to spend it and make clothing out of it. And this flax and linen, the linen from the flax, and the wool should have covered her nakedness, but she wasn't covering her nakedness. So that represents her wickedness, her lewdness. And now will I uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers. I want to uncover her. And of course, I'm going to take away her wool and flax that should have covered her. Take away her blessing that should have covered her. She's going to be uncovered in her lewdness in the sight of her lovers. And none shall deliver out of my hand. And you can't deliver me out. You're going to be punished. And the time will come, and it was about there in Hosea's time. I would take away their joy in things of worship that they had corrupted. In chapter 2, verse 11, I will also cause all of your mirth to cease, that's your joy and happiness and your laughing and so forth, her feasts, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn assemblies. Well, why would he take these away? These feasts and new moons and Sabbaths were part of God's will. I won't take them away because you're not following them anyhow. It's going to take them away from you, and you're not going to have them anymore. So again, these things that were designed to be a blessing for them would be taken away. The blessings would be taken away. And I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees. Now, figs are a very pleasing taste. I like to eat figs. They have a good taste to them. And her vines, I'm going to take them away and lay them waste. And so they'll be laid waste. All these things that are blessings, these are blessings to you, and they're going to take them away. Whereas she has said, these are my hire from that my lovers have given me. My lovers be by false gods. I'll make them a forest. So I'm going to make those places a forest. The beasts of the field shall eat them. So you're not going to eat them. The animals are going to come in and eat them because you're going to be out of the land. You're not going to be in the land anymore. And so the beasts will take over the land. And when they were teared away by the Assyrians, the animals came in, the wild animals came in, the bears and the lions came in, Asiatic lions came in, and probably other animals like wolves and panthers, which would be leopards. And probably all of these came in as well. Now, a leopard can kill a man pretty easily, right? False worship has consequences, and they would reap the consequences. And so that has consequences. I will visit upon her the days of the Balaam and Baal, I think some pronounce it Balaam, and double A is all sound, Balaam. I always pronounce it Balaam. And the Baal, without the I am at the end of it, is singular. And the Chem ending in Hebrew is plural. So Balaam is plural. Different gods. And Baal is one of the Hebrew words for a Lord. There's three different Greek words, words that are translated with the idea of Lord. There's Baal, there's Adonai, and then there is Yahweh or Jehovah. And I would say Jehovah or Lord, translated Lord, all caps Lord in the King James Version, usually. But the word Baal is never translated Lord for the true God. It's always for a false God. And so I'll visit her the days of her Balaam, unto which she burned incense when she decked herself with her earrings and her jewels. Who gave her the earrings and jewels to go for these jewels and jewels for them? I did. He blessed her. And went after her lovers and forgot me, saith the Lord, saith Jehovah, saith Yahweh. So she went after them. She went after false gods. And it's just like Hosea's wife Gomer went after other men. It's a parallel. The parallel is very plain. Hosea's wife did this, Israel doing the same thing. Hosea, you know my problem. You know how I feel. Because you're going through exactly what I went through. We need to always put ourselves in God's position. How is God reacting to my actions? What does he think of what I'm doing? And what does he think? And how does he react to it? God looked at Hosea and said, what's happening to you, Hosea? It's happening to me. It's happened to me. Now, you know, Hosea, my problem. So preach and teach. Teach to the people. try to get them to repent. Right? This is important. Good care for Israel, and God chastened Israel with the Syrian captivity. That's the northern 10 tribes. The southern 2 tribes, Judah, called Judah, that will be Judah and Benjamin and Levi, primarily the Levites from the southern 2 tribes. And remnants of all the other tribes went with them. They went into Babylonian captivity. After God chastened Israel with the Syrian captivity, just like he chastened her with 40 years of wandering, he would allure her and try to draw her back to being faithful. Keep that in mind. So it's laid out here in this passage in verse 14, starting in verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her, bring her into the wilderness, and speak comfortably unto her. So I'm going to bring her back, and I'm going to bring her back. Now, this doesn't mean she's going to come back to the land and come back to the land of what we call Palestine today. It's not a prophecy of that. It's a prophecy of a spiritual kingdom. And that would be the better kingdom, spiritual. That's the better kingdom. As Israel was promised Canaan, but were chastened when Achan sinned in the valley of Achor, it was hope after the chastening. So after he was chastened, Israel had trouble. They tried to take the city of Ai, and they were defeated. Some of them were killed and slain. And Achan was the one that brought it on. He sinned. He did not do what God said. You can go back to read this in the book of Joshua. Hosea 2:15, and I will give her vineyards from thence, in the valley of Achor for a door of hope. And she shall make answer there, as in the days of her youth. So he's talking about Israel in the days of Israel's youth. I think he's talking about with this, and as the day when she came out of the land of Egypt. He's going back to when they came out of Egypt, and the valley of Achor is where Achan, and this happened at Achan. And so Achan sinned in the valley of Achor. This is the prophecy of the church, the pure bride of Christ. The purified Israel, the church, would refer to God as Ishi, my husband, rather than talking to him like one of the gods called him Baal. So she's not going to call him Baal, and the word Baal is used for all the gods, the false gods, but it's never used and allowed to be used for the true God. And it shall be in that day, said Jehovah, that thou shalt call me Ishi, and shall call me no more Baali. So you're not going to call me Baal and make me equal to these other false gods. Right? You're going to call me my husband. Israel, the church, and this is spiritual Israel, which is the church in the New Testament, will not know the names of the idols. In verse 17, the mention of Baal probably links this with the temple of Ashtoreth, the worship of Ashtoreth. Supposedly the wife of Baal, and they would consort with the priestesses, the women, and that would supposedly make Baal jealous. Now here's what would happen. Whenever the leaves started falling in the fall, or what we call autumn, and the deciduous trees start dropping their leaves, it looked like all the things are dying. They'd say, "Oh, we gotta make Baal. He's going to sleep on us. He's about to go to sleep on us. He's about to die. So we got to make him jealous. So we'll consort with his priestesses, and he'll get jealous, and he'll come back to life, and everything will be okay." Well, they do that for a few months, and sure enough, what time called springtime, then things start greening up again. And so, lo and behold, it worked. And so they figured all this out so that they could engage in these licentious actions. That's what it was all about. For I will take away the names of the Balaam out of her mouth. That, notice it's a I am at the end, that's plural, all of false gods, and they shall no more be mentioned by their name. The mentioning of them by name is not saying the word Baal. They're not going to mention them as if they're a god. I can mention the false gods and say they're nothing but a piece of stone, and they're not God at all. And this is not breaking the fulfillment of this prophecy. The new Israel, the church, would not engage in carnal warfare. In that day will I make a covenant with them, with the beasts of the heaven field, birds of the heavens, and with the creeping things of the ground. I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the land, and will make them to lie down safely. They're not going to wage carnal warfare again. This is not a physical kingdom. This is a spiritual kingdom. Jesus told Pontius Pilate, my servants, he said, my kingdom is not of this world. In John 18. My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants take up swords and fight. But now is my kingdom not from hence. And Pontius Pilate, who was trying to determine, are you fomenting rebellion against Roman Empire? He said, I find no fault in him. He understood. It's a spiritual kingdom. The premillennial friends we have do not understand this. They really do not see this. They are misguided. So I'm going to break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the land, because you're not going to have a physical kingdom. You're not going to go out and wage carnal warfare to spread it. I will make them to lie down safely. So they're not going to have to worry about carnal warfare. It's not saying that the enemies of God's people won't kill them, but it's a spiritual kingdom. And I'm not to fear them. That all they can do is take my life. They can't take my soul away if I remain faithful. Not to fear those that can only destroy the body. There would be 5 characteristics of God's marriage with the new Israel. 5 characteristics. I will betroth thee unto me forever. I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness. Now, righteousness is going by this proper standard, the same standard for everybody. It's equality. It's the word for just or justice, and in justice, and in loving kindness, and in mercies. And I will even betroth thee to me in faithfulness. Thou shalt know the Lord. You shall know the Lord. I'm reminded when I read this of Jeremiah 31 through 34. You're going to know the Lord. And it's a prophecy of that. This idea of knowing the Lord is found throughout the Bible. And we could have a whole series of lessons just on what that means. Following it through the Bible is very, very fruitful. If I get the time, I intend to make a series of lessons on that, and maybe we can deliver them here in our school. Okay. But you can trace it through the Bible. Just get a concordance, look at the word know, and then follow it through and study it out yourself. You can see it, what I'm talking about. God would restore his blessings upon Israel, because that's a prophecy of the future. It shall come to pass in that day, I will answer, said Jehovah. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. And the earth shall answer the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they shall answer Jezreel. So we'll see, get back to we had the word Jezreel in our first lesson too. Right? So now he's going back to the new wine, and the grain, the oil. I'm going to bless you again. And again, it's not talking about physical blessing anymore, because it's not a physical kingdom. It's talking about spiritual blessing, because it's a spiritual kingdom. And again, Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servant would take up swords and fight. The premillennials say he will take up swords and fight. No, he's not going to. He told Pontius Pilate he wouldn't. fact, the scripture tells us he will not set foot on earth again. We don't have time to deal with premillennialism altogether. I will sow her unto me in the earth. I'll have mercy on her that have not obtained mercy. Now, wait a second. I will sow her to me in the earth. Maybe he's talking about scattering his people. Well, God allowed his people to be scattered in Acts 8. With persecution, they scattered the church. What happened? These people went out, and I'm convinced the apostles had laid hands on these people, and they had miraculous gifts. These people went out as prophets and prophetesses and teachers and evangelists, and they spread the gospel. And the apostles followed up and laid hands upon those converts. And then they kept following them up. This went throughout the whole world. The gospel was spread. I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy on her that had not obtained mercy. Now, this might be here. This might be referring to Gentiles. I think it probably does. And I will say to them that are not my people. See, this is an expression that's used in the New Testament for Gentiles. These two expressions are, thou art my people, and they shall say, thou art my God. So now then he's saying, I'm not just going to be a blessing. I'm just going to have blessing to you, Israel, the descendants of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, the sons of Israel, children of Israel. But I'm going to be there's going to be a blessing for all of those people that know me. Those that had not obtained mercy are going to have mercy. And those that are not my people will be my people. And so that means Gentiles. So Gentiles will be in this kingdom, not just Jews. So it'll be a kingdom filled with all races of people. And all these things would come to pass in that day, the day that he would draw them back to him and make his new covenant of marriage with the new Israel, the church. Verse 21 to 22. Remember, we go back. They will know the Lord. Right? Right? Thou shalt know the Lord, know Jehovah. In verse 20. Hosea 2:20. I call your attention to Jeremiah 31 to 34, quoted twice in the New Testament in the book of Hebrews. That passage is quoted twice. New Israel becoming Jezreel probably means that they would sow and spread the gospel. Jezreel is that which is sown, or sowed like you're sowing seed. And so Israel will be sown. The church is going to spread throughout the whole world, and the persecution would spread them, drive them into other places, and these faithful children of God would go and preach and teach. And God would bless them, bless the word as it went forth. The word was powerful, and the message spread in the first century. The new Israel, the church, sowed the seed of the kingdom, preached the gospel in all the world. The Gentiles would become part of Israel in verse 23. And verse 23 is quoted in Romans 9:25. He said also in Hosea, I'm quoting right from Hosea, it says, I called this that my people, which was not my people, her beloved was not beloved. And he's quoting from the passage we just looked at here, verse 23. It's quoted in Romans 9:25. And it's talking about when Gentiles become Christians in the context of Romans chapter 9. Are the questions so far? You see, the glory of the new Israel as it encompasses all people. It shall be that in the place where it was said unto them, you're not my people, there shall they be called sons of the living God. You're not my people. And that's back in our passage in Hosea. It's quoted, this verse 23 is also quoted in 1 Peter 2:10. Who at time past were no people. See? But now the people of God, let's talk about Gentiles. But now the people of God who had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. He's quoting from Hosea 2:23 here in this passage. Any questions? We see the glory of the new Israel as it encompasses all people. Now let me summarize. Israel had been unfaithful to God as Gomer was unfaithful to Hosea. Chastened Israel but did not kill her. After Israel was chastened, God tried to win her back. Faithful remnant became the new Israel, the church, along with the Gentiles, because we're going to see as we develop this more fully, God divorced Israel. We see this in the 12. Any questions?